Okay, hello everyone. Thanks for a chance that given to our group. We are from Group A1. We would like to present our presentation is about textual aspect in drama. But before we start, let me introduce the members of the group. First is Ida Bagus Gede Subawa Putra as the first presenter and the moderator for today's presentation. Next is Imade Wira Adnyana, Bonifasius Nathanael A.N, Eva Elisa, Wayan Jason Karenski, Gusti Ayu Putu Agung Silvia Sari. So without start the presentation. So first, what is drama? Drama is a presentation of written dialogue that depict fictional or non-fictional event. You need to remember, drama is different with theater. So, for today's presentation, the main characteristic to consider when analyzing drama, we divide it into several aspects. First is information flow, second, transmission flow, third, overall structure, fourth, space, fifth, time, six, characters, seven, types of utterance in drama, eight, type of stage, and the last is dramatic sub-genres. Okay, for the first is information flow. So, how much detail is given in a play is especially important at the beginning of plays, when the audience expects to learn something about the story problem or conflict, the main characters, and the time and place of the scene. In drama, usually there is no narrator who tells us what's going on in the story world in drama. The audience must rely on what they see and hear on stage. Information can be conveyed linguistically, for example, through the character speech, or non-linguistically through stage props, costumes, the stage set, and so on. And next one is transmission flow. Although information is usually conveyed directly to the audience in drama, there are times when a mediator, similar to the narrator of the narrative text, appears on stage. This is called epic theater. Epic theater, also known as German pitch theater, is a type of didactic drama that presents a series of loosely related scenes that avoid illusion and frequently interrupt the storyline to speak directly to the audience with analysis, argument, and documentation. This drama using alienation effect, which is the familiar contents are presented in an unfamiliar way to get a new effect so that the audience does not empathize the way the story of a drama and can think profoundly about the drama. So there are two point aspects here. The first is perspective and second is dramatic irony. First is perspective. Perspective refers to how a character perceives and processes what is happening in the story. It is also an art technique that alters the distance or depth of an object in story. And the next one is dramatic irony. Dramatic irony literally defies by which the audience or reader's understanding of events or individuals in a work surpasses that of its characters. Dramatic irony is a type of irony expressed through the structure of a work, an audience awareness of the situation in which our characters exist differs significantly from the characters, and the characters' words and actions. Okay, that's all about my part. Next part will be continued by my friends uh, Gung Sufi. Time is yours.
Okay, thanks for the time that given to me. I will continue the presentation about structure. The structure is divided to story and plot, triunities, tag pyramid, and open and closed drama. Next slide, please. Okay, the first one is story and plot. The story addresses an assumed chronological sequence of events. Plot refers to the way events are causally and logically connected. Function of plot is the first, the plot presents the story. Second, expose the major character and his or her development. And the third is the plot reveals the theme. Next slide, please. Okay, the next is types of plot. The linear plot, or occurrences chronologically. The second one is episodic plot, consists of a series of loosely related incidents which are tied together by a common theme and or characters. The third one is nonlinear plot. Present events might be interrupted to describe a past situation, or a story might begin in the middle or at the end instead of the beginning. The next is parallel plot. It's a structure that enables an author to combine or weave two or more dramatic plots in a story. The next is flashback. Scenes that are inserted into the story. It took him back in the time. It, sorry, it took him back in the time. The next is foreshadowing. Occurs when the writer hints at possible future events in a story. And the last one is subplots. Two secondary events and action in a story that can connect to end or support the main plot. Next is triunities. The unities mean that a play should have only one single plotline, which ought to take place in a single locale and within one day. Triunities: unity of plot, unity of place, and unity of time. Aristotle's concept of mimesis is the attempt to imitate or reflect life as authentically as possible. And subplot refer to secondary events and action in a story that can connect to and or support the main plot. Okay, we move to first pyramid. The first is exposition. At the beginning of the story, character, setting, and the main conflict are typically introduced. The next is rising action. The main character is in crisis and events leading up to facing the conflict begin to unfold. The story becomes complicated. The next is climax. At the peak of the story, a major event occurs in which the main character faces a major enemy, fear, challenge, or another source of conflict. The most action, drama, change, and excitement occur here. The next is falling action. The story begins to slow and downward towards its end, tying up loose ends. And the last one is resolution or denouement. Also known as the denouement, the resolution is like a concluding paragraph that resolves any remaining issues and ends the story. Okay, the next is open and closed drama. The terms open and closed drama go back to the German literary critic Volker Koch, who distinguished between plays where the individual acts are tightly connected and logically built on one another, finally leading to a clear resolution of the plot, and plays where scenes only loosely hang together and are even exchangeable at times and where the ending does not really bring about any conclusive solution or result. Next slide, please. Okay, the next is space. In the space, this define the first is space, the second one is word scenery, the third one is the setting and characterization, and the last one is symbolic space. The first one is space. Space is an important element in drama since the stage itself also represents a space where action is presented. The stage set quite literally sets the scenes for a play in that it already conveys a certain tone like one of desolation and poverty or mystery and trickery. Illusion of realism. The scenes presented on the stage is meant to be as true to life as possible and the audience is expected to succumb to that illusion. Okay, we move towards scenery. The layout or overall appearance of the set is usually described in a stage direction or description at the beginning of act or scene. Thus, all the necessary stage prop-like properties used on the stage such as furniture, accessories, and possibly stage painting can be presented verbally in secondary text, which is then translated into an actual visualization on stage. Next slide, please. We move to setting and characterization. The setting can be used as a means of indirect characterization. Choose the anonymity and unfluffing atmosphere among the characters. A close look at the setting can choose contribute to a better understanding of the character and their behavior. And the last one is symbolic space. Important factor to consider in symbolic space is the interrelatedness of setting and plot. Obviously, the plot of a play is never presented in a vacuum but always against the background of a specific scenery, and often the setting corresponds with is going on in the story world. The setting can to support the expression of the world, current at a certain time, or general philosophical, ethical, or moral questions. One can say that rather than only functioning as a background or creating a certain atmosphere, that space becomes symbolic space as the point towards or other level of meaning in the text. I think that's all from me. The next presentation will continue by my friends. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for the time you can join me. I'd like to continue the presentation. The next one is time. In this context, there are some of the general concepts of time which are expressed in and by a drama. The first one is succession and simultaneity. The second one is presentation of temporal frames. And the last is story time and discourse time. Next, please. Succession and simultaneity. One of the first distinction one can make is the one between succession and simultaneity. Events and action can take place in one of two ways, either one after another success, successively, or all at the same time simultaneously. When these events are performed on stage, their presentation in scenes will inevitably be successive, while they will be simultaneous according to the internal time frame of the play. Next, please. Presentation of temporal frames. There are a number of of possibilities to create a temporal frame in drama. Allusion to time can be made in the character conversation. The X-time of a scene can be provided in the stage direction, or curtain stage props like clocks and calendars, or auditory devices such as church bells ringing in the background give the audience a clue about what time it is. Next, please. The next one is story time and discourse time. The first one is duration. Important distinction one need to be made when analyzing time in drama, namely between fictive story time or playtime and real playing time. The playing time of a piece of drama, of course, always depends on the speed at which actors perform individual scenes and can thus vary significantly from one performance to another. The next one is order. Another aspect to look at when analyzing time in drama as well as narrative is the concept of order like narrative. Drama can make us of flashbacks, analysis, and flash forward prolepsis. And the last one is frequency. Frequency is how often an event is presented. There are these possible types of reference to an event. See Genet, simulative, repetitive, and iterative. That's all from me. The next presentation will be continued by my friend. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for the time given to me. My name is Wira Prasetya. So in this time, I would like to continue the presentation with the character. So in this section, character can be divided into major and minor character, character complexity, character and genre conventions, contrast and correspondences, character constellation, character configuration, and techniques of characterization. Next, please. Major and minor character. In drama, characters are divided into major and character. Major characters usually have a lot to say and appear frequently throughout the play, while minor characters have less presence or appear only marginally. For example, in Hamlet, Shakespeare's famous tragedy, the major character is Hamlet, the main character or protagonist. He appears in most scenes and is allocated a great number of speech and what is more, since even his name appears in the title, he is the eponymous hero, while the minor, like the Gravedigger and Yorick, they only appear in Act 5, Scene 1, appear only briefly in the play with limited dialogue. Next, please. Then we move to the character complexity. In complexity, major characters are frequently, albeit not exclusively, multidimensional and dynamic or round character, while minor characters often remain monodimensional and static or flat character. See character dimension in narrative prose. Hamlet, for the example, as a multidimensional, is marked by great intellectual and rhetorical power, but he is also flawed to the extent that he is indecisive and passive, while monodimensional characters are also static. They do not develop or change during the play. Laertes, Ophelia's brother, for example, is not as complex as Hamlet. He can be described as a passionate, rash youth who does not hesitate to take revenge when he hears about his father's and sister's death. In the play, Laertes functions as a foil for Hamlet. Next, please. Now we move to the character and genre conversation. Sometimes the quality of character can also depend on the subgenre to which a play belongs, because genres traditionally follow certain conversation even as far as the dramatical personae. The dramatic personnel are concerned. For example, characters in tragedies have to be of a high social rank so that their downfall, in the end, it can be more tragic, or the higher they are, the lower they fall, while comedies typical empty, lower character who need not to be taken so seriously and can thus be made fun of. Next, please. And then we move to the contrast and correspondences. Characters in plays can often be classified by way of contrast or correspondences. The Changeling, for example, the character in the main plot and the one of the subplot subplot are exposed to similar conflict and problems and thus correspondent with one another on certain levels, while their reactions are very different and thus show the contrast between corresponding figure. Isabella remains firm and faithful, whereas Beatrice, in a sense, cheats on her husband. Asmil trusts Beatrice while Albius is highly suspicious of Isabella. By presenting corresponding characters in such a contrastive manner, their individual characteristics are thrown into sharper relief and certain quantities are highlighted with regard to the overplot. Next, please. Now we move to character constellation. Constellation can be based on sympathies and antipathies among characters, on how they act and react to one another, etc. Usually, one can make the distinction between heroes and their enemies, or protagonists and antagonists, and one can find characters who collaborate and support one another while others fight or plot against each other. From a lay performance of Sherman Macdonald's After Juliet, the opposing members of the House of Capulet and Montague can be identified by the fact that they appear in differently colored spotlights, green and red respectively, and by their final positioning in the play, which already mark their newly aroused antagonism. They have picked up their sword and faced one another, ready for a new fight. Next, please. And then we move to the character configuration. The term configuration denotes the sequential presentation of different characters together on the stage. Configuration does change whenever characters exit or enter the stage. In the first scene of Shakespeare's Richard III, for example, Richard appears on the stage alone first, followed by the entrance of his brother Clarence and Brackenbury, with a guard of men. Afterwards, exit Richard is on his own again, before Lord Hastings joins him. Before the first scenes close, Lord Hastings exits and Richard remains once again alone on the stage. Configurations are important to the extent that they show up growth and development among group of characters, which in turn is essential for the development of the plot. Next, please. So the last is technique of characterization. Generally speaking, one can distinguish between characterization made by the author in the play's secondary text or authorial, or by character in the play figural, and whether these characters are made directly, explicitly, or indirectly or implicitly. You can see an editable, ex, exip, explicit, explicit, explicit and authorical describe of characters in author commentary or states direction, telling names in the figural character description of and comment on other characters, also self-characterization, and then in the implicit for the author, correspondence and contrast indirectly characterizing name, and in the figural, physical appearances, gesture, and facial expressions, body language, mask and costume, stage props, setting, behavior, voice, language, style register, dialect, etc. Topic one discussion. So yeah, I think that's all of my part. Next we'll continue by my friend Bonnie.
Okay, so thank you, Wira. I will continue the next part of the presentation. In this part, we discuss types of utterance and drama. There are a few main points. The first point is monologue, dialogue, and soliloquy. Next is asides. The third is turn allocation, stisomythia, and repartee. And the fourth is the significance of wordplay in drama. Next slide, please. Okay, so the first is monologue, dialogue, and soliloquy. In drama, in contrast to narrative, characters typically talk to one another, and the entire plot is carried by and conveyed through their verbal interactions. Language in drama can generally be presented either as monologue or dialogue. Monologue means that only one character speaks, while dialogue always requires two or more participants. A special form of monologue, where no other person is present on stage beside the speaker, is called soliloquy. Next slide, please. Next is asides. Another special form of speech in drama is the so-called aside. Asides are spoken away from other characters, and a character either speaks aside to himself, secretively to another character, or the audience as spectators. The apron stage, which was surrounded by the audience on three sides, makes asides more effective since the actor who speaks inevitably faces part of the audience, while our modern proscenium stage does not really lend itself to asides as the vicinity between actors and audience is missing. Asides are an important device because they channel extra information past other characters directly to the audience. Next slide, please. Okay, the next is turn allocation, stisomythia, and repartee. In comparison to monologues and asides, dialogue is by far the most frequently used type of speech in drama. In analyzing dialogue, one can look at turn talking and the allocation of turns to speakers, i.e., how many lines is each character's turn? Do some characters have longer turns than others, and if so, why? One can also analyze how often a character gets the chance to speak through the entire play and whether he or she is interrupted by others or not. A special type of turn allocation occurs when speakers' alternating turns are of one line each. This is called stisomythia and is often, albeit not exclusively, used in contexts where characters compete or disagree with one another. Okay, and the last point is the significance of wordplay in drama. The play with language entertains spectators and at the same time attracts and sustains their attention. A special type of wordplay is the so-called pun, where words are used which are the same or at least similar in sound and spelling, or otherwise known as homonyms, but differ in meaning. Another concept to be mentioned in the context of play with language is wit. The idea of wit, which combines humor and intellect, plays a significant role in the so-called comedy of manners. Wit, wit is expressed in brief verbal expressions, which are intentionally contrived to create a comic surprise. Okay, so that is all from my part. The next part will be continued by my friend Jason. Thank you.
Thanks so much for the time given to me. My name is Jason, and I would like to continue the presentation. Okay, I will explain about types of stage. The first one, there's Greek classicism, and then medieval, and then English Renaissance, and then Restoration period, and the last of the type Next, please. Greek classicism. Drama in ancient Greece was staged in an amphitheater, which was characterized by a round stage about 3/4 surrounded by an audience. Ancient Greek drama was originally performed on special occasions such as religious ceremonies and thus had a more ritual, symbolic, and didactic purpose. Another interesting fact to know is that the audience in ancient Greece consists only of free men. In example, slaves and women were excluded. Next, please. Medieval. Medieval dramas were mainly performed during religious celebration, mystery dramas, morality dramas. The close distance between the actor and the audience must be taken into account for a way of acting that combines a serious subject matter with stand-up comedy and funny or light scenes, depending on the taste of the audience. The lack of clear boundaries between the stage and the audience again hinders the creation of realistic illusion that are also not intended. Next, please. English Renaissance. The Elizabethan stage is usually found in public theaters. That is, plays are no longer performed outside. The most common form of stage in the English Renaissance was an upfront stage surrounded by an audience on three sides. Stage sets are quite barren, while costume can be quite elaborate. The Elizabethan theater can accommodate up to 2,000 people, and the audience is rather heterogeneous, made up of people from different soda backgrounds. Next, please. Restoration period. The 17th and 18th century theaters were much smaller than the Elizabethan theaters. They accommodated about 500 people, and performance took place in an enclosed space with artificial lighting. The stage is closed by decorative frames, and the distance between the audience and actor is increased. There is still room for interact through the small stage that juts out into the auditorium. Thus, the restoration drama still does not aim to create a sense of realism, but presents an idealized and highly stylized depiction of scenery, characters, language, and subject matter. Next, please. Modern times. Stages from the 19th and 20th centuries are called proscenium stage or picture frame stage because they are shaped so that viewers watch the play. Modern stage forms have not been able to fully accommodate the needs of more experimental plays, or for older plays such as ancient Greece or the Elizabethan age simply because the convention of the stage as a whole are different too. Next, please. Okay, I would like to continue the presentation about dramatic subgenres. There is types of comedy and types of tragedy. Next, please. Okay, drama comedy. Drama comedy typically aims at entertaining the audience and making it loud by reassuring them that no disaster will occur. The outcome of possible conflict will be positive for the characters involved. Next, please. Drama tragedy. Drama tragedy tries to raise the audience concern to comfort viewers with serious action and conflicts, which typically end in a catastrophe, usually involving the death of the protagonist and possibly others. Next, please. Types of comedy. Romantic comedy usually tell a pair of lovers and their struggle to come together in usually at the centers of romantic comedy. Satiric comedy. Satiric comedy has a critical purpose. It is usually attack philosophical notion or political practice as well as general deviation from social norm by ridiculing characters. Comedy of manners. The comedy of manners is also satirical in its outlook, and it takes the artificial and sophisticated behavior of the higher social class under close scrutiny. Next, please. Fairs. The fairs typically provokes viewers to hearty laughter. It presents higher extracted and characterized types of characters and often has an unlike plot. Comedy of humors. Ben Jonson developed the comedy of humors, which is based on the assumption that person, character, or temperament is determined by the predominance of one of four humors. And then melodrama. Melodrama is a type of stage play which became popular in the 19th century. It makes romantic or sensational plot with musical element. Later, the musical elements were no longer considered essential. Melodrama aims at the violent appeal to audience emotion and usually has a happy ending. Next, please. Types of tragedy. Senecan tragedy. Wrote in ancient Roman tales where the tragedy is read, not staged. The characteristic are the story is divided into 5 segments, complex plot, and high dialogue style. Revenge tragedy or tragedy of blood. It is a drama with a theme of revenge and the fatal consequence of domestic. The characteristic is that the main character is middle class with conflict and common character. In addition, the theme is suffering with the aim of evoking empathy, pity, and fear in the audience. Next, please. Types of the next types of tragedy is tragicomedy. Tragicomedy, as the name suggests, intermingles convention concerning plot, character, and subject matter divided from both tragedy and comedy. Domestic or bourgeois tragedy. The characteristic is that the main character is middle class with conflict and common character. In addition, the theme is suffering with the aim of evoking empathy, pity, and fear in audience. Okay, I think that's all from me. I will return it to the moderator. Moderator, time is yours.
Okay, thank you very much for my friends Jason. Now I will continue the presentation. So next slide, conclusion and complicated story. that the drama is very complex and cannot be taken at face value, we need to learn and understand the various in and out and elements of drama in order to comprehend and analyze the drama itself. Okay, that's all about our presentation. If there is a grammatical error or mistakes that we made, we do apologize. And until next time, thank you very much and goodbye.